You deserve your flowers, right? How many of you guys can say that you feel like you've gotten your flowers? This whole entire school year, everything that's been going on, you got your flowers? Okay. So I only saw one hand raised throughout this whole room. And we want to say, I'm here today to tell you that you deserve your flowers, right? Why? Because too many times we're looking at this scene and we're giving people their flowers, we're speaking about their accolades, we're celebrating people, but we wait till it's a moment where it's too late to actually tell them face to face. And we no longer have the opportunity to really celebrate all it is that the people have done. So this whole workshop is really based off of Burke's photographs of Martin Luther King's funeral and Kehinde Wiley's portraits. Why? Because Kehinde Wiley uses people of color and he puts them in powerful classic positions that celebrate who they are in their normal attire and makes beautiful portraits out of them. So it's an opportunity for us to look at each other and celebrate each other for all it is that we do on a daily basis. Because why? You deserve your flowers. So, as educators, right, we've endured the world at this point. We've gone through so many different things. And if you just take a look back on it, we went through COVID-19. We have had to face some of the most absurd things being said, being told to do things one week and then it's changing the next week. And we still have to keep bouncing back and forth and saying, plain face, smiling on your face, there for your students every day. But it didn't make it that it wasn't hard. It didn't make it when people are still trying to evaluate you according to an old system and you are in a whole unprecedented moment and you're still getting hit with the same thing of teaks. You're still getting hit with the same kind of jargon that we would if we were in a normal classroom, right? So it had a lot of different frustrating moments. Not only that, you had to enter into a classroom not knowing if it was a safe environment, if there were sanitary practices going on, and it was really nerve-wracking for a lot of people. Then we went through universal remote learning, and that alone probably had some of us pulling our hair out because we really had to do something unthinkable. We had to be able to change the narrative of what our everyday classrooms look like. And we really had to think of how it was we were going to engage our students. And we engaged our students on several different ways in several different avenues. But it took us really going back to the drawing board and saying, I can't do things the way I've normally done it. And so universal remote learning, if you're like me, you probably were teaching a lot of circles where it never turned on the camera. You didn't know if they were there until the project turned in, until you got told, you were my favorite teacher. And I'm like, I want to know because I never saw you. Or if you were like me in Fulton County, I went to prom and all these students came up and gave me a hug. And I was like, who are you? And they were like, it's me, so-and-so, fourth period. And I'm like, why didn't you ever turn on your camera if you wanted to greet me with a hug? Like, I could have at least seen your face. But universal remote learning hit us with a lot of challenges that we weren't used to. Our students faced a lot of challenges. I know with us coming back to the building, we already experienced some ninth graders are like seventh graders. So now we're having to really reshape their thinking, remold them into thinking the way we need them to at the level that they're supposed to be on when they're already steps far behind. Then a lot of us dealt with loss of loved ones. I've been in a school that's a blended learning school, and COVID-19 has really and greatly impacted our students. We've had students parents who have passed away, and I'm here to do teach a content, but how can I teach you the content when you're grieving? How can I get you the information when you're going through? So now I have to take a moment to still teach, but also address the elephant in the room, address the thing that's going on, because at the end of the day, this is a person who's still hurting. And I have to be there for my students, but I also may have my own things going on that may be causing a struggle for me. I may have lost someone. I may have lost a friend, a brother, a sister, a loved one. And so there became this whole nuance with mass loss being a subject matter inside of our classrooms and having to do the counseling portion, the grief, all different kind of things. And yes, we got the option of saying we want to refer you to the grief counselor. But a lot of times we are that grief counselors for our students who see us face to face, who've built relationships with us, who trust us. And so there's been a lot of different things that you guys have taken on in the face of these past 3 years as educators. Then, I'm not gonna lie, these gas prices, right? You gotta.
I wish it was still that.
Huh?
I wish it was still that.
Who you telling?
Next week it's 1 to 5.
So, that's a big complaint, right? Because we have to get to the building to be able to teach our students. Our raises, they're based off of the salary schedule, right? And we already heard this morning with Mr. Leon, and he said teachers need to get paid more, right? We're not getting paid more, but these gas prices, the food prices, everything is increasing. But our pay still remains the same. We still have our common struggles, but we still are charged to come there, wear a smile, and be who our students need us to be on a daily basis. And you do it all so well. Then, if you're like me, you have a baby who's on formula. And then you have the stress factor of, I have to get my child food, but there's nothing on the shelf. And so now there's added stress factors to what you do on a daily basis that's really starting to challenge your mental capacity as well as you doing your job successfully. Some of us are going through different things and we're just wearing face and we're smiling and we're still executing and we're still showing up and giving our all even though it's coming from an empty cup. And so with even that said, I'll tell you my personal, this formula shortage has greatly impacted me. I have a son, this is my son, who is 1 year old. He's on a medical grade formula. It was called Elecare. Elecare was a part of a salmonella factory plant recall. I had to take all of his formula that I had gotten and send it back. Medical grade formulas are not popular. They're not in mass quantities. It's hard to already get them. So when you have one recall, it makes it almost nearly impossible to feed your baby. My son went a week and change without having formula. With us scrambling, going back and forth to his GI, what is it that we can do? Them giving us samples and us having to still do this back and forth, all while still in between going to work and saying, hey guys, this is what we're doing, this is what we're gonna get done. And it was a struggle because in my mind, my son is in the forefront. But every time I log on that computer and somebody says, hey, Mr. Rob, I have to say, how are you doing, Giada? I want to see you do this today. I'm looking forward to seeing your artwork. And I have to still be there for them because I might be the only positive influence that they have throughout this day. And so this medical thing, I mentioned he's on a medical grade formula. Well, not only did we experience that with him, we experienced all of this with him this year too. He was hospitalized for 9 days at one point. He had abscesses on his back. They didn't know what caused it. Turned out he had a skin infection because his skin was so raw and messed up. And so we had specialist after specialist appointment. My son is 16 months old and he's 15 pounds. And so once upon a time, they tried to say it was neglect until we did research and we did genetic testing on him. And we found out that with genetic testing that he had a chromosomal abnormality. It's not that he has an extra chromosome or anything. One of his chromosomes just has extra material on it. And so for us as parents, we have to also worry about how we're going to feed our son, what's going to happen with him. He also has several different allergies that egg and dairy limits the amount of food he can have. So we have to also think about how we're tackling feeding him and all different kind of things. All while showing up and saying, hi guys, I'm here. All while still planning. All while still delivering content that is relative and relatable for our students. Then we deal with crises like these that make it hard for us to show up and make it hard for us to wonder how we're going to protect our kids. God forbid if somebody came into my school, what would I do? How would I protect these kids that have become my babies? And so we go through all these different nuances that really hinder what it is that we can do on a daily basis. And as an educator, there's a lot of weight on our shoulders about what it is that we're going to do, how it is that we're going to operate, and how it is that we're going to nurture these students that sit in front of us on a daily basis, give them their gifts, talents, and really push them forward. So this whole workshop is not to be a Debbie Downer, but it's to be a reminder of what you've endured this whole entire time. Because not a lot of people are walking up to you and saying, you deserve your flowers. Because I've seen you show up even when it was hard. I've seen you show up even when you were sick. I've seen you show up even when weeks after somebody may have passed away. I've seen you and you deserve your flowers. So I'm here today to tell you, I'm here to celebrate you because you guys are simply amazing. And the fact that it is June 3rd and we probably ended school this earlier last week or possibly this week, you deserve your flowers because this shows your level of dedication to come in to an educator conference and still seek knowledge so that you could pour back into your students. So you definitely deserve your flowers for all it is that you do. So that leads me to this. Feeling like everything is stacked up against you, but somehow you're still on that wall and you're pushing back. And you are the resistance that makes education what it is today. We get slammed a lot. We hear a lot of stories about people saying educators are lazy. COVID-19 brought out the worst in people, especially during universal remote learning. Talking about teachers are just sitting on the couch watching The View. Teachers are not doing anything. They're just home, cush job. No, if you understood what universal remote learning did, it blended the workday and we were working longer hours. So no longer could I just check out on my job, but oh my God, I just realized I've been sitting in front of this computer for 12 straight hours. I haven't even attended to the things that I need to do for my own personal life. So, stacked up against you, but you still are holding onto the wall, you're still pushing and pressing. So, these are just some of the hats that you've worn throughout this entire term of your teaching career, right? I know for me, my students, you might have been somebody's auntie, you might have been somebody's uncle, sister, brother, mom, dad, coach, mentor. My students call me Uncle Rob. I just got coined this year. I've been Uncle Rob to them. So all of these different things are what you wore for your students. It's what you've been for your students. You've inspired them in some way, shape, or form, in some capacity. And so you've been their advocate, you've been their bodyguard, you've been their hall monitor, because if you got lunch duty and everything, you've been their monitor. You've been innovative, you've been the coach, the PPE police. You better put that mask back on, right? Put your mask back on, wear your shield, wipe down the table. Here's a couple extra pumps of hand sanitizer. Boy, you done sneezed too many times in my class. So you've been the PPE police and you've allowed yourself to really become that aspect of that community for the students. And so congratulations because you've done it and you've still done it well because you continue to show up. And you showing up is a big celebration because there's been a mass exodus of educators. And I don't blame them for leaving. But somebody still has to show up and somebody still has to do the job. Somebody has to show up and somebody still has to be there for them. Because where there's going to be a void, it causes other issues. And so we're showing up and we're being who they need us to be on a daily basis. And we're really spending that time cultivating that next generation so that we can have the next generations of innovators, the next generation of teachers, the next generation of designers, the next Denzel Washington, the next dancer, the next of the next. And it's so important that we do what we do because we're inspiring them to go forth. And we're giving them a role model of what it looks like to persevere in the face of adversity. So, why wait till it's too late? Right? Because you deserve your flowers and we want to give them to you while you're alive. So, this is the art making portion of the workshop, right? I gave you guys my whole speech, and now everybody who's not an art teacher is like, oh, geez, you done set me up. But I like to do art making portions of workshops and blend it together because this allows us to really pull on that whole aspect of socio-emotional learning and put it together, right? We're able to make something, but we're able to be a community in the midst of. So what we'll be doing is we will be creating a work of art, which will be a self-portrait. I have my example, I brought it so that you guys can stamp. So we'll be creating a work of art. Don't judge my portrait. I did it real quick. Where we'll be making our own stamps out of lino cut. And we'll be drawing a portrait, or you'll draw a representation of who you are. If you're not comfortable with trying to make a whole full-on portrait, you can draw out representations of who you are, things that are meaningful to you, things that make up who you are. And we're gonna create some stamps, and we're gonna go around and we're gonna give each other our flowers. So this is the You Deserve Your Flowers project. And there's several different ways you can modify this to work in different areas. So your first step is, you guys all have paper in front of you. Your first step is you want to do your self-portrait. So your self-portrait may be an actual drawing of yourself, or you may choose to draw things that represent who you are if you aren't confident in your necessary drawing abilities. I know my students, sometimes they freak out when I tell them they have to do a portrait. So I usually try to tweak some little things in there so that I could build their confidence first, so that when it's time for us to actually really dive into it, they'll feel comfortable diving into it and trust the process. All right? So y'all can look at yourselves in a picture, pull up. I like pulling up a picture of myself. And just reference a picture of yourself or draw a representation of who you are. And you each have pencils at your table. If you want to do charcoal, I have some charcoal right here. I have charcoal pencils, and there's India ink as well. All right? Does anybody have anything to say? Anybody want to share?
I just want to say thank you. The way you broke it down, it made me realize that I did a lot this year. It just went by so quickly that I just rolled with the punches and I never really took time to reflect, like, dang, this has really been a lot. So I just thank you for breaking it down and making me realize that I did a good job at persevering.
Yes, you did.
You did quit. Thank you.
You're welcome. That's what I want to hear, because you guys have done a lot. And I've seen, at the school I used to work at within the county, I got a call this year from my old school that was in the county. And it was one of the teachers got put on an assignment to see if I'll come back to that school and leave my school. And yeah, they were like, ask Mr. Robertson if he'll come back. Because I was the only teacher that was consistent and stayed and did everything, and I still was there for my students, created programs and all different kind of things. And when I left, every teacher left mid-year. Every teacher walked off. And they're looking for somebody that's going to be consistent and stay throughout the year and be able to do things fun for the students that kept them engaged and kept them out of trouble. And so when I looked at that, I said, oh, I feel so honored that you would call me back. I'm not going to return, but it felt good to know that you guys looked at me in that capacity and hear that you guys valued what I had and what I brought to the table. So everybody, you guys brought a lot to the table this year. And if your administrator didn't tell you, because a lot of times you don't hear too much from your administrator versus your evaluation. And it's not to bash any administrators or anything, but they got a lot going on. And they have all these other educators that they're in charge of, making sure that behavior, discipline, everything with students, you're not hearing a lot from them. And unless you got a bomb teacher appreciation week where the students are sharing and they're like giving you flowers and giving you treats and stuff, you don't know what kind of impact you made. And especially in high school, because high school kids don't really celebrate Teacher Appreciation Week as much as like elementary and middle. So you're going to get a good luck in high school. So really understand that you've done so much this year, and everything that you've done is worth celebrating. The fact that you're at the end of the school year, you made it through, it might have been your first year teaching, it might have been your last year teaching, but you made it through and you really did something unthinkable.